when we hear about avoidance, when we hear about anxious, and we hear about disorganized, and we hear about these are all just people we created these things because we had to. And it was unfair, and maybe it was pushed on us and instilled on us and forced on us. And I'm not saying look past people's disrespect towards you. I'm just saying if someone is self-aware and working through it, give them some grace and realize they're not necessarily a bad person. They're just figuring out their ways in the world and trying to heal the inner child. What's up, YouTube family? Real quick, if you could just like, comment, subscribe, that helps out the show so much. Now, let's get into it.
The SelfHype Podcast.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy Eli Vasquez, and welcome to the SelfHype Podcast, brought to you by Chobo Studios. And this week is about attachment styles. Not all attachment styles, I'm talking avoidant attachment. As someone who's a disorganized, which is anxious attachment and also avoidant as well, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of how to manage, where they come from, how to deal with it, and how to know this is a partner, even though they have whatever attachment style, this is a partner that we could be with and work with and grow with. This is going to be fun. Let's dive into it. This week is about attachment styles, and I want to dive a little deeper into Eli. You've been listening to me for a while, if you have been, and I'm a disorganized attachment. It was a rough one when I took a test with a partner, ex-partner, and she was secure attachment, and I was disorganized. And I always thought I was an avoidant. And maybe there are some moments of anxiety, but I always saw myself as an avoidant attachment. I never took the test. I took the test like 4 times. Disorganized. And it said it's the most dysfunctional one. And I felt like a second-class citizen. I felt like I should go on the run and go into hiding. I felt like the Incredible Hulk. That I should just be naked and hide in third world countries, from the government. That's how I felt as a disorganized. But as I've been doing this personal wellness coaching, as I've been working with people throughout the years, as I've been discovering myself and doing the work in myself for years, I realized something. Your attachment style is not who you are. Your attachment style does not dictate the type of person that you're meant to be. And everyone has some sort of attachment style. Everyone has some sort of something. And as someone who was totally dysfunctionally disorganized and is now still disorganized, I'll never say that I'm secure now. I won't say that because I'm still a human being and these things are rooted, but I know how to deal with it. I know how to manage it. So we're going to dive into a little bit about me and dive into a little bit of how to deal with that avoidant. Because I'm in these digital streets, I'm in these digital swamplands, and I'm seeing ladies struggling out here. I see people struggling in general with avoidance. But I always challenge them with the fact that, yes, avoidance can be problematic, can have a lot of issues, but I think the worst thing is that they just know how to exactly trigger your anxiety. And the age-old tale, the old cat and mouse, the old tug-of-war is the person in their anxious that wants this avoidant, that pushes the avoidant away, and that just makes the anxious more anxious. There's one thing to have an attachment style. There's another thing to not be self-aware that you have one, and that it can play in part of how you deal with stress, how you deal with talking to a partner, dealing with issues. The number one thing is self-awareness. Before we get into anything when it comes to attachment smiles. What a nicer episode if those attachment smiles. Attachment styles. We got to understand the fact that everyone has it in some capacity. Some people have been through some stuff than others, so they develop that. Others haven't, but everyone is it's either sparks in certain individuals or not. Like that avoidant person can make the anxious person super anxious. Maybe they were secure. Like I made my ex-partner very anxious in our dynamic because in moments of tension, I would be avoiding. But when she would turn off and kind of push away, then I started getting anxious. So that's where my disorganized came in. What's up, y'all? I know you guys are enjoying the show, but real quick, I just want to talk about the Patreon. Patreon, you get early access to episodes, bonus content, and you could even ask a question that gets on the show. It's patreon.com/selfhype. Now, let's get back to it. I think the number one thing is to realize if you're not self-aware of your attachment style, and if you're not self-aware that it could dictate and get in the way of conversations and connection with the partner, that is where you're in trouble. The number one key is self-awareness. And even you listening right now, I don't care if you sit on the toilet or driving to work or whatever, really kind of think about what I'm talking about here. I'm not avoiding Eli. I don't avoid things. I need to know. I need to talk about it. I need to hear it. I need to. Okay, you might be anxious then, boo boo. You might be a little anxious. And it's maybe important that we kind of sit in our feelings and ask ourselves a question. How do I deal with stressful situations? How do I deal in moments of fear? How do I act and not react in moments where the person in front of me, I don't know if I can trust? Or maybe they don't understand me, or maybe they don't hear me, or maybe there's some misconnection because everyone has something. And if you think, oh, the world just sucks and I'm great, then I don't think anyone should date you. I'm just going to tell you that right now. So it's really important to understand the fact of like you could be with an avoidant and they could be in a great partner. They could be a supportive, loving, phenomenal partner. I think in these digital streets, we see content and video after video about avoidant and the avoidance this, and look out for the avoidant and the avoidance so bad. So the avoidant comes out at night, but don't feed it after midnight. Don't put water on it, or else it's a bunch of gremlins are going to pop out of the avoidance back. I'm like, baby girl, it's just a dude named Kyle, and he's been through some stuff when he was 8 years old, and it's still kind of he shuts down in moments of tension because he doesn't know how to manage his feelings. That's all it is. But if Kyle's self-aware of where he came from and how it affects him today, and if he's actively working on it and he expresses that to you, then we could date Kyle. Maybe we could even let Kyle put a ring on it. But that's the difference, is that self-awareness. Even for you being anxious, being the people pleaser, having to win people over at an early age, and yet you never received it. You thought you're only as good as your achievements. If you're not self-aware of that with your partner, then you're going to be constantly trying to win them over, and it's never going to be enough. And you're going to be exhausted, and you're going to resent them, and it's going to turn into friction. But if you're not self-aware of that, that's where there's a problem. So first thing is self-reflection. So even pause this freaking episode if you want to and sit on the toilet just a little bit longer and just think, what is my thing? What is my thing? And if you want to do some reading, you want to do some Googling, you want to do like the test I did, I got to find the link to it, but it's there. You can figure that out. So it's really important kind of you take the work on yourself of like, what's my attachment style? And then also kind of think about, okay, what's my partners or the person I'm talking to and how they act in those moments of tension and fear. And when I say this, it's important to realize that this is all coming from a fear response at a vulnerable age. I understand that the anxiousness was that people pleasing. The anxiousness was only as good as what I went over. The anxiousness was only like, are you okay? Is everything all right? Is everything fine? Is like, where is that coming from? That's even outside of relationships. That's friendships. That's workspaces. That's tension. So that's coming from a really rooted place. And that's your origin story. And it's really important to be self-reflective of that and understand that. And the avoidant too, we think the avoidant, oh, my anxiety makes sense, but he's an avoidant. So that means he's just an a-hole. No, that person shuts down because that is how they survived. Your anxiety, that's how you survived at a young age. That's how that avoidant survived too. So in terms of my own self-reflection, I am disorganized. And I think it was a hard pill to swallow. And it gets emotional when I talk about it every time, is because you kind of realize that your childhood was not okay. And when I was younger, I tried to just normalize it. I tried to be like, oh, everyone deals with this, everyone deals with that. I swept it under the rug so many times. And it kept bubbling up and bubbling up. And I didn't realize how it was affecting my adult relationships. I thought I was fine. I was like, dude, screw them. Okay, I was raised by teenage parents that didn't know what the hell they were doing. Yes, we grew up in poverty. Yes, my dad was never around and only showed up to whip my ass. Yeah, my mom was busy with kids and didn't give me any attention. I lived on my own for a couple of years with my grandma, and yeah, it's fine. And then it did. You just feel like a wuss. And I don't know if there's like a dude thing to say, but you feel like, oh, I'm disrespecting my family, Latino family here. I don't want to do that. But also, two, I feel like I'm making excuses and I'm trying to like play this pity party game. Until I started realizing the patterns as an adult. It took years for me to like get out of college and start seeing, wait a minute, this is not normal. And the more I talk to other people, they don't act the same way. So I realized I was disorganized, especially after I took that test. And it hurt because it forces you to look at what wasn't okay at a very vulnerable age. And when it came to me, it's like I had to sit with the fact that it makes all the sense in the world that I am disorganized. It makes all the sense in the world that I'm disorganized. My dad, we was 17 when he had me. He didn't give a damn about being a dad. He loved me, but that was not his priority. So he was always out and about. He even tells me now I was going to be a crappy dad. So I was gonna support your mom no matter what. So if she called me and said you were acting up, I was gonna show up, whoop your ass, and leave. Because as like I know I couldn't be the dad I needed to. So as long as you fear me, then I did my job. Verbatim what he, well, these are the words he tells me. So all I knew of this man was violence. All I knew of, and I'm not saying it was, I see over here like me just making it smaller again. He did hit me. He did whoop me. He did scare the hell out of me. He would hold a bat in front of me. I wouldn't clean my room. He would come home and grab me by my collar and push me up against the wall and stare at me like he's going to kick my ass. My mom had a whole grabs one of her younger siblings, like my siblings, and tries to take him off of me. But that's what I've normalized with our relationship. And to this day, I'm scared of him. I know I could whoop his ass now because you've hurt his back and all that, even though he goes to the gym all the time. But to this day, he'll text me, "Hey, call me," and I get anxiety. And I hate that I have that. And I still shut down. And the sad thing is I don't think my dad really knows who I am. And I don't think he ever will. Because of what happened. But I realized in moments of tension, in moments of fear, in moments where I don't feel safe, I shut down. My brain just shuts down. And I have to go for a walk. I have to process my thoughts. I can't speak up for myself. I can't say what I need to. I can't even think exactly. I'm just trying to cater to them and just trying to get through the other side of the situation just so it could be over. And I realized that after it was over, my brain slowed down and it felt safe again. So I was able to think clearly and then realize, wait a minute, I should have said this in this argument. I should have verbalized that. Wait, that wasn't okay. Wait, they did this to me? I just pushed that off to the side like it was no problem. I realized that my brain is in such a flight or fight response that I'm just out. Like, okay, whatever. I just shut down, whatever. Let's just get through it. Or I need to go for a walk, or I need to step out, or I need to do something to collect my thoughts because my brain can't feel safe and process at the same time because I feel like there's an ass whooping coming on, let alone, mind you, this is like probably a woman and standing in front of me who's like a 5 foot, like Latina. She probably got some hands with those hoop earrings she's got, but she's not gonna whoop my ass like my dad did when I was a little kid. But that's where it comes from. That's where the avoidance comes from. That's where in moments of fear and tension, my brain will totally stop and slow down just to try to get through it. And in terms of my anxiousness, my mom was 18 when she had me, and it was us for a while, probably for like first 5 years, but 5, 6 years before my siblings started popping out, and boy, did they pop out. So my mom, and my stepdad had kids every year. So my mom got immediately busy with my siblings, and I immediately became the third parent because we didn't come from money or anything like that. And I think around, once I was getting to those years of like 11, 12, 13, I was like really on my own. I was just kind of asked to do stuff to help, but there wasn't a lot of emotional management. And it was weird to the point where, like I say now, it's like my mom, I think I have more of an emotional relationship with my dad than I do with my mom, even though I'm like scared of him. Like I think I kissed my dad on the cheek and hugged my dad more. And I think my dad said I loved you more than my mom did. And my mom was always like an emotionally distant person, because of how she grew up. But, at those very vulnerable ages, I was on my own. I was like, I couldn't, I had a therapist tell me, like, who could you rely on during that time? Like, was there anyone in that you could actually talk to? And that really hurt me. And I was like, no. And I think the shit, now I'm getting into it. Sad thing is, there's still, I don't know when I could talk to my family, really. I'm sure if I sat down, I could, but it doesn't feel like, I feel like I'm bothering them. So I say all that to say is like, I'm the oldest of like 7 siblings, and my mom was too busy being a mom. And I was, and for a couple of years, I was on my own living in my grandma's house, like 13, 14, 15. And I didn't realize how vulnerable ages those are. And I realized that's when my people pleasing started coming out. That's when my just being super driven came out, because I'm like, for the longest time, I'm like, okay, if as long as I keep winning, then one day I'll get her attention, or one day she'll give me the reaction I always wanted. Uh, and that's just a hug and saying I love you and I'm proud of you. And I never really got that and still haven't. Um, I I I took my mom on a dream trip to Ireland. She always wanted to go to Ireland, and I surprised her on a call with my family for her 50th birthday. And I was like, "Hey, I got this trip for you," and she was like, "Sweet, great, thanks." Oof. So obviously, so I say all this to say, not to make this a pity party about me, but you got to know where it comes from. Like you got to know where it comes from, and that's the only way. And it hurts, it still hurts me talking about this because I'm still dealing with it. But I know now. I think it was really dangerous to think about me moving through the world as a grown ass man, not knowing these things, not knowing where this comes from. So you got to know your origin story, and it is hard to look at, but it's necessary for you to do something about it. So I get where that wanting to win people over and the people pleasing when someone shuts down or pulls away, that I have this anxiousness where I got to win them over. When they are being tense and they are giving me a lot of attention and they are being maybe a little aggressive, I shut down and run away, and then that's why avoidance comes in. And it's easy to feel broken. It's easy to feel bad. It's easy to feel like you don't deserve love. It's easy to feel unlovable. But once you realize that we're all dealing with it, and once you realize that this is just a younger version of yourself that had to develop these things in order to matter and it wasn't fair, and it's your job now as an adult to do something about it for that little one, for that little version of you, that is a journey that it's worth having, because it's hard to do it for you. It's another thing to do it for your inner child, that and knowing that like that wasn't fair, you shouldn't have had to do that. And by God, I will move and take action every day to make sure you never have to do that again. And it's important that we take this time for ourselves, to not only for us give ourselves grace, but to give other people grace too. So when we hear about avoidance, when we hear about anxious, and we hear about disorganized, and we hear about these are all just people, just we created these things because we had to. And it was unfair, and maybe it was pushed on us and instilled on us and forced on us. And I'm not saying look past people's disrespect towards you. I'm just saying if someone is self aware and working through it, give them some grace and realize they're not necessarily a bad person. They're just figuring out their ways in the world and trying to heal the inner child. And with these steps and actions of self awareness, of understanding where it's come from, then you can let your partner in on it. That's the difference. So I say I'm still disorganized because I am still disorganized. I do get anxious when people don't give me a lot. I do get you know, my brain still slows down a lot in moments of fear and tension. My anxiety's through the roof in spurts of moments. And I think the hard thing is it's probably never gonna go away. It's probably something I'm gonna live with for the rest of my life. And I don't see this as like a plague. I see this as I'm on a journey to find the tools and test out those tools and finalize the toolbox that I could always go to when these things happen, in order for me to stay the course, to be the man that I'm meant to be, and to heal that inner child who couldn't. And that's my goal today. That's the goal today. I'm not looking at tomorrow. I'm not looking at yesterday. Today, there's a sports a sports coach. Always forget this guy's name, but I use his reference so many times. I got to figure out his name. But he worked with LeBron James. He worked with like every top athlete you could probably, Phelps, all the guys, and all top athletes. And the one thing he tells everybody, you're only as good as where your feet are. And that line hit me. You're only as good as where your feet are. So when there is like this, you see an athlete, a basketball player, they score, they shoot, they miss. Do you just stand there? Are you just sad? You just stare at the rim like, oh my God, I'm sad. No, you get your ass back on defense and you keep playing. The game ain't over. So that's the way I think in terms of my attachment style and other people's too. As long as we're self-aware and we're doing something about it, like the game ain't over yet. I'm going to manage this. I'm going to get it under control. So that kid says, thank you. And I'm that man that I'm meant to be. That's my journey. That's the frame. I could have a pity party all goddamn I want. I'm only as good as where my feet are. Guess what? I got anxious. My brain shut down. I should have did some more in that conversation. It is what it is. Now we know. Adapt, keep it moving. I give myself grace. Give yourself grace. You're a goddamn human being floating on some giant ass rock, twirling in a million bajillion miles per hour. Give yourself goddamn grace. All right. And no one's making it out of here alive. So enjoy the process, please. We focused on self awareness. We focused on understanding what your thing is. We talked about where it comes from. And then with this information, then what the hell are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? So, how are we going to share with, think of actions the way to soothe us, and then in turn, let our partner in? What's up, y'all? I know you guys are enjoying the show, but real quick, I just want to talk about the Patreon. Patreon, you get early access to episodes, bonus content, and you could even ask a question that gets on the show. It's patreon.com/selfhype. Now, let's get back to it. What are we going to do to soothe us and let our partner in? And for example, in my disorganized, when I have anxiousness, I'm self-aware of that anxiousness. What is that? There's a girl that I've known for like a decade that she's great. She's awesome. I'm homies with her, but man, she stirs up my freaking anxious attachment because she's so like just blah. Like she's funny and cool, but she is so just. I crack jokes and I give all this energy, and she's just flat. She's like, huh, yeah. It is like, and you know, a younger Eli would be like, I need to marry you. I need to win you over. I will give you children. What do you need? I'll move to a farm if you want to. Cause I'm like, oh my God, this anxious attachment. But now I'm self-aware. It's like, dude, you are triggering exactly what my mom has given me my entire life. And this isn't healthy. And the thing is, it's not her fault. That's just who she is. But I can't blame her for triggering my anxiety response, because I know where this comes from. She's just not a wordsy person. She's a dope human. She's super helpful. She's a homie of mine, but she's just not that person. And I need to manage that. I need to be like, it's not me. It's not her. It's just what this situation's triggering. And where do I need to put myself in this to make this in a healthy manner? Could I date this girl? Hell no, I couldn't date her because I would try to give so much and I would never receive it and I would resent her. So I know that's not someone I should date, but earlier Eli would date her. Earlier I would run into her arms and be like, I'll marry you, whatever you want, because of this anxiety that triggers from my mother. But now I know to not get that because why? I'm trying to find the love that I always should have received versus the love that I was used to. And that's the goal. But you got to self-manage yourself in order to stay the course on that venture. So I know I'm like, she could only be a friend. And it gets hard sometimes. I'm like, I'll crack a joke and she's like, yeah, that's funny. I'm like, gosh, I'm like, it's me. It's just, it's nothing out of this world. It's okay. And then in terms of, that avoidance too, it's like, the avoidant is a little easier because that moment of tension is a little more common in relationships. So I got to practice it more in relationships where, I was self-aware of it. I'm like, okay, my brain's going to slow down. I'm going to feel really tense. I'm going to need to go for a walk. So now I am able to let partners in and be like, yo, my avoidance is coming in. I think I'm starting to slow down. I'm not being productive in this argument. I'm not going to be productive in this argument. And I don't want it to go off course in the way that it should stay. So I'm going to go for a walk for like 20 minutes, or give me an hour and I'll be back. And if anything, we could just come back to the conversation tonight or come back to the conversation tomorrow morning. But I think in order for us to be this most productive, I need to go through these motions. And so when I do take up that space and I do go for that walk, I'm able to slow my breathing down. I'm able to really assess the situation and be like, okay, what direct questions do I need to ask? What's some things that she said to me that was felt unfair, maybe not okay, but how do I reprocess that as a me statement, not pointing at you? And how do I just slow my breathing down and say, I'm safe. I'm okay. I'm safe. I'm okay. I'm enough. I'm safe. I'm okay. I'm enough. That is what I slow my brain down. I'm like, okay, we're good. Give myself a process. Let's go back in there. And I'm able to finish it up and do what I need to. But I had to learn those skill sets. I had to figure those things out. So as you are self-reflective and as you're dealing with that, be self-aware of like, what are those things? And let your partner in on it. Like that's the difference is we're learning how to love each other. We're learning how to figure each other out in those moments of tension because everyone has it. Everyone has different quirks. Some people shut down. Some people want to throw it in your face. Some people, whatever. And here's the thing. The healthy partner is not someone who doesn't have any emotions, that has any feelings, that have any attachment styles. It's the partner that is able to regulate that and dictate how they share it in a healthy manner. So it's not so much if you have emotions, it's how you're sharing it with your partner. So understand that the only way I have a healthy dynamic is with someone who may be an anxious attachment, but they're self-aware and they understand and can regulate their own anxious attachment. So if I tell old girl, listen, I need a 20-minute walk. I just need a 20-minute walk. And she's like, well, why do you want to leave me? And da 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 blah, blah, blah. It's going to turn into a big issue versus someone who's like, okay, that's giving me anxiety, but I trust you. I'm going to trust you. I love you. And I'll see you when I get back. Be kiss, bounce, come back. So I say all this to say is think about your partner or think about maybe a partner that you want to receive and be self-aware of like, okay, this is something I got to learn about him. This is something I got to be self-aware of me. And we have to create a connection and a bond to figure out how we deal with moments of tension, deal with moments of fear. And we have to remind ourselves, everybody, the big reminder that it's not me against you. I'm not trying to win because if I win, that means you lose. And you're my partner, so that means we both lose. It's not me against you, it's us against the problem. And our attachment styles that's something we have to manage, but that's outside of two people that are standing in front of each other that love each other. Those are two different things. And it's important that you take the time to step into that. This person's looking at me, they're trying to express to me because they're trying to feel understood. They're trying to feel considered and they want to feel safe with me. So what do I have to do for that, for myself and for them? So these are things you have to be self-aware of. And I know I said, we're going to focus on avoidant. This turned into an episode of just attachment style in general. But, with the avoidant, I say all this to say is like, if it takes a lot of them, they have to be self-reflective. You could do everything you can to mirror what it's like to be self-aware and to share your traits and to let them in on it. But if they're like, oh, okay, no, that's good luck with your issues, but I'm fine. You can't work with that. That's why I say if you look at the past episodes, green flags, look at the green flags episodes, go back. I talk about, what do I say? They're self-aware. They're self-reflective. They have a growth mindset. This is date one. This is in the Tinders. Put it on the damn bio if you need to. Do you have a self-awareness and do you practice a growth mindset? Because if you do, then we could have these conversations. But if you think you're great, if you think, oh, okay, she's anxious, yikes, okay, crazy, then, and he's not self-aware of his avoidance, it's gonna be really hard to create a conversation with him. And maybe you guys could do couples counseling and maybe the therapist could probably, have some strategies to connect with him in some way to make him, shift and see. But all you can do is bring it up. All you can do is be self-aware. All you can do is maybe sit down, have an emotional check-in and be like, yo, this is how I am. How do you think you are in moments of tension? And just let him answer for himself and then feel free to chime in. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't mean to assume, but as your partner, I do notice that you may do this. So do you think that's valid to say? So just kind of work with him. Don't like point the finger. Don't do that. Don't do that. And again, I'm not saying like, oh, he's a precious panda bear. There's only 4 left. Be very sweet and secure. No, he's a grown ass man. What I'm saying is have open dialogue, have a bridge, not a barrier, not a freaking barrier with a torpedo you're shooting over it. Even torpedoes go underwater. Never mind. That goes against what everything I was saying. But you get it. There has to be accountability of one's part. And if one person is not willing to sit and have any sort of accountability, we're talking to a wall. And as an avoidant, I mean, just be like, everyone wants to know. It's like, well, if he runs away and I text him and then he doesn't talk to me for 3 days, he's just an asshole. Like that's, and he's an asshole because he's not being considerate of another person in his emotional mind and his depths of his feelings. That's okay. And sure, fine. But I'm pretty sure if you went MIA for 3 days, especially over a weekend, this man would go bananas. So if you're thinking, I'm like, well, he's an avoidant and doesn't talk to me for a week, or he hasn't texted me in 6 days, or he hasn't did it. I'm like, he's just not a mature human being. That's really what it is. Because I'm like, you got to understand the fact that like, yes, I'm scared. I got to run away right now. It comes from these places, but I still have a partner that loves me that's sitting there waiting for me. And I have to be considerate of her. It's like I have to be considerate. That's the difference between being an adult and the inner child. You have to be considerate. Like and that's the thing. You're giving them grace by giving them the space to exuberate those moments of tension, to take up that space, but they have to be considerate of you too. So if they're not being considerate, that's something you got to really be self-aware of the relationship. Because that's the only way we're gonna make this love boat still be cruising. Like you got an oar, and that oar is the attachment work that you did. We need another goddamn oar. But if he's just chilling with his feet up, sipping a margarita, it's really hard to steer that ship with just one. So why I love this is because we're cutting the BS. I love talking about this stuff because we're embracing the suckiness of human beings. And I say that in the most beautiful way possible. We're normalizing it, that no matter who you're with, they're going to have something. And it's important that it's like, I rather deal with your something than be with anybody else. I rather deal with your anxious failed ass, breathing on the glass in the bathroom, like I need to take a shower, babe. Just need some time, and then you like suction cup your lips to the glass, just like, I love you. Are you done yet? And I'm like, I rather have that moment of anxiety than have the best of anybody else, because I know you're a human being and I know what you bring to the table and I know where all this comes from, and you are here now, and I love you from the journey that you're on. I love where you're at in your journey, and I want to support you to get to where you're meant to be. That's what love is like. Sucky people loving sucky people. Find your sucky person. Find your pain in the ass. Like everyone looks at my TikToks and stuff like, oh, Eli, you got it all together, daddy. You Puerto Rican, got good hair, good hairline, and you emotionally receptive. Girl, I'm a disorganized attachment. I'm self-aware of it, but God, I'm still a pain in the ass sometimes. But that's the thing. It's like I want to find someone that's like, Eli, you're a fucking pain in the ass. Oh, I love you so much. All right, go take your little walk. Go keep cracking jokes to me, but I'm gonna give you a hug and say you are not your jokes. You are beautiful and lovable the way you are. You can run away all you want, but best believe I ain't going nowhere. I'm still gonna be here, and I'm sorry if I made you maybe not feel safe. Like those are the things we want to hear, and that's the thing I'd verbalize to my partner too. Of like, this would make me feel. This would really soothe my inner child in moments like this. So don't be afraid to go there, but you can't go there alone. You can't go there alone. So notice how I talked about that. Again, that's self-awareness. What is your thing and what does it look like? And then where does it come from? And then what actions are you going to do to soothe that? And how are you going to let your partner in to help you and support you through that? Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for listening this week. I hope you got some value out of this. This is kind of what I want to keep doing is I want to dive a little deeper into myself, have you guys get to know me a little more as we progress through this show. I'm going to dive a little deeper, get a little more vulnerable, kind of get at the heartstrings a little bit, because I think it's necessary in terms of connection. And I hope this one was a valuable one. And if you want to fully support this show and keep it going and keep the lights on and support us in all the amazing ways and get amazing perks in the process, join our Patreon. You get exclusive content from all of our guests and me. You get to ask me a question that can make it on the show. And then also you get early access and so many extra perks. So check that out. And I will see you next week.
The Self Hype Podcast.